Good evening, dear listener. As you settle in tonight, find a cozy spot, perhaps adjust your blanket, sip a warm cup of tea, and gently rest your head on your pillow. Take a deep breath, feeling the air fill your lungs. Then slowly exhale, releasing the day's worries. Let your body relax, your mind drift softly, like a feather caught in a gentle breeze. Tonight, I invite you to imagine a world quite different from our own, a world where the hum of busy streets is replaced by whispers of shadows, and the glow of screens is replaced by flickering torchlight. Picture a time when messengers on horseback still carried secrets across muddy roads, yet somehow, even then, the desire for instant connection lurked beneath the surface. There's a strange, almost surreal element to this idea, a kind of timeless irony. Imagine placing an order in your mind only for it to be delivered not by drone or sleek app, but by a hurried scribbled note carried through the fog of history. Perhaps the town square is filled with the clatter of carts, not unlike the chaos of a marketplace, except now it's a marketplace of hopes, fears, and whispered requests. As the shadows lengthen and the night deepens, your senses may feel the faint stirrings of a world where convenience is a distant echo, yet curiosity persists like a flickering candle in the dark. And as your eyes grow heavy, you'll soon wake not in your familiar room, but in a place where the air is thick with mystery, and the ordinary becomes extraordinary, a world waiting just beyond the veil of your dreams. You wake up slowly, your senses immediately assaulted by a tapestry of textures, smells, sounds, and shadows that seem both familiar and utterly alien. The bed beneath you is rough, woven from coarse, uneven linen that scratches your skin like 1,000 tiny claws. The air is thick with the scent of damp straw mixed with something sharper, perhaps the tang of herbs burned in a nearby brazier, or the acrid sting of smoke from a nearby fireplace. The room is dim, lit only by flickering candlelight that casts dancing shadows on uneven stone walls, crumbling at the edges and covered with smudges of soot and age. You notice the floor beneath your bare feet, cold, uneven, splintered wooden planks that crackle with every shift. The fabric of your clothes feels stiff and coarse, perhaps woolen and rough against your skin, and as you move, a faint scent of sweat and unwashed linen drifts with you. Your mouth tastes faintly sour, like the leftover wine from last night's meager feast, or the stale crust of bread that's probably gone hard with age. Your nose catches the aroma of burnt herbs, mingled with the smell of damp earth seeping in through cracks, and somewhere nearby, a faint whiff of vinegar and spoiled meat. And then there's the soundscape. Distant clangs from the blacksmith's forge, the rhythmic clatter of hooves on cobblestones, the muffled murmur of voices, some calm, some strained, carrying through the narrow streets. You hear the faint, persistent wail of a sick child, or perhaps the groan of someone in pain, blending into a chorus of life's chaos. Occasional shouts of merchants calling their wares, the toll of a bell signaling the hour, dogs barking at the passing shadows, each sound a reminder that this world is alive, even if it's not always gentle. As your hand brushes against the coarse fabric of your rough cloak, you realize how different this is from the plush comfort of modern life. There's no soft mattress, no quiet hum of an air conditioner, no gentle glow of a screen. Here, your idea of a bad morning, forgetting your coffee or missing your Wi-Fi seems almost trivial. No, your first thought might be that your mask smells worse than the patients you're supposed to help, and that's saying something. Now, with a tentative movement, you reach out and grasp the coarse fabric of your garment, pulling it over your head, feeling the scratch of wool against your skin. You sit up carefully, feeling the uneven, cold stone beneath you as you prepare to face the day. You stand, the floor shifting beneath your feet, and brace yourself against a nearby rough-hewn wooden table, its surface scarred and splintered, perhaps the only piece of furniture that's endured through generations of use. You take a moment, glancing out through a small, barred window, if a tiny slit in the wall can be called that, out onto a crowded village square. The scene unfolds before you like a living painting. Villagers in simple, often patched garments, some carrying baskets of herbs or bread, others tending to livestock or repairing tools. Children run past, their laughter muffled but persistent, darting between the legs of merchants and beggars alike. A priest, robed in simple but clean fabric, moves slowly through the crowd, murmuring prayers that seem to hang in the smoky air. People glance your way, some with curiosity, others with suspicion, and you catch the subtle shifts in their expressions, respect perhaps mingled with a touch of fear or indifference. Your presence, masked and mysterious, commands a silent acknowledgement, an unspoken recognition that you are part of something larger, even if no one quite understands why you're here. The street smells of burnt wood, fresh bread, and the faint, lingering scent of sweat, every breath a reminder that life here is raw, unfiltered, and unhurried. The textures of the surroundings, rough stone walls, uneven cobblestones, coarse fabrics, are tactile memories that etch themselves into your skin, grounding you in this strange, timeless place. And as you take it all in, it becomes painfully clear. This is not your world. The modern comforts, the digital noise, the endless streams of notifications, all of that has faded into the background. Instead, you are here, in a world where the pace is dictated by the rising and setting sun, by the rhythm of daily chores and the whisper of shadows. You might chuckle quietly at the thought of how your morning routine would look here. No alarms, no smartphones, no instant connection. Just the slow, deliberate act of waking, feeling the cold stone beneath your feet, and adjusting yourself to the strange new reality that awaits. But before you step fully into this world, take one more deep breath. Feel the weight of history pressing softly against your chest, whispering secrets of a time long gone but never truly lost. Because to truly understand where you've just woken up, you'll need to step back to see the bigger picture. This world shaped by its own rules, its own rhythms, and its own peculiar sense of urgency. And in that understanding, you'll find the key to what comes next. It's a period nestled deep in the shadows of history, a moment when kings and queens still held sway over sprawling kingdoms, and the echoes of their decrees shaped the very fabric of daily life. You've awakened in the late Middle Ages, a time roughly spanning from the 14th to the 15th century, a period marked by grand castles and humble villages, by the clang of blacksmiths and the songs of wandering minstrels. It's an era where the world is both vast and cramped, stitched together by dirt roads that wind through fields and forests, and where the horizon is often blurred by the haze of smoke rising from hearths and forges. Imagine, if you will, a society built on a delicate balance of power, nobles sitting high in their stone fortresses, wielding land and influence like a child clutches a favorite toy, while peasants toil in the fields, their backs bent beneath the weight of survival. The clergy, with their robes and bells, loom large, guiding moral compasses and sometimes, quite literally, shaping the very landscape of the land. The merchant class is bustling, their stalls overflowing with spices, fabrics, and trinkets from distant lands, though to the common folk, those riches can seem as distant as the far-off empires that send their ships across treacherous seas. The divide between the wealthy and the poor is stark, Think of a market noisier than Black Friday, but with more pigs than people, where a noble's feast might feature roasted swan and fine wines, while a peasant's dinner is a hunk of bread and whatever root vegetables can be scrounged from the dirt. And yet, despite the grandeur, life is often a matter of luck, endurance, and a fair share of superstition. Power is concentrated in the hands of a few, kings who reign from their stone castles, often surrounded by courtiers whispering secrets, and local lords who oversee their domains with a mixture of fear and reverence. The common folk, meanwhile, survive on the fringes of this hierarchy, their days dictated by the rhythm of the seasons, the church bells ringing to mark dawn, noon, and dusk. To wake up here is to hear the distant tolling of a bell, the crowing of roosters, or perhaps the shouts of market vendors setting up their stalls. The streets are alive with a cacophony of sounds, clattering carts, the clink of armor, the laughter of children, and the occasional shout from a drunken soldier or a distressed wife. The air is thick with smells, smoke from the fires, the pungent aroma of manure, the burnt herbs hanging in the marketplace, and the faint, persistent scent of damp earth after a rain. The physical environment feels rugged and unrefined. Your house might be a simple wooden hut with a thatched roof, or a stone building that's seen better days. Floors are uneven, often made of rough-hewn planks or packed dirt, and furniture is sparse, perhaps a sturdy table, a few chairs, and a bed stuffed with straw. Clothing is coarse, itchy wool or rough linen, nothing like the soft fabrics of modern fashion, and washing oneself is a rare event, often considered suspicious or even dangerous. Taking a bath might be seen as an act of vanity or a sign of some secret shame, almost like announcing to your neighbors that you're planning something shady. Instead, you might wash your face in a basin of cold water or simply wipe your hands on a rag, as if to cleanse more than just dirt. Your taste buds are probably more familiar with sour bread and watered-down ale than with the complex flavors of modern cuisine. A sip of stale wine or a crust of dried bread might be your daily nourishment, rather than the gourmet meals of a noble's banquet. And in this world, your frustrations trying to get a fire going on a damp day, or convincing a stubborn mule to move, are far more immediate and visceral than waiting for a slow-loading web page or dealing with a buffering video. Your Wi-Fi frustrations are nothing compared to trying to light damp wood in the rain or carrying buckets of water uphill every morning, because here, life itself is a kind of physical CrossFit. The landscape around you is a patchwork of fields, forests and villages, connected by muddy pathways that turn into quagmires when it rains. Towns are bustling hubs, a chaotic mix of merchants shouting, animals mooing, and children squealing as they chase one another through narrow alleyways. Markets are lively and chaotic, more crowded than a modern-day shopping mall on a Saturday, but with fewer neon signs and more livestock. Churches dominate the skyline, their towering spires reaching toward the heavens, serving both as places of worship and as symbols of the divine right of kings. Roads are often muddy and treacherous, and travelers rely on the stars, the sun, or the guidance of local guides to find their way, if they're lucky. The rhythm of life is dictated by the seasons, the church calendar, and the whims of fate. People wake with the first light of dawn, often heralded by the crowing of roosters or the tolling of church bells. Work is repetitive and relentless, farming, blacksmithing, weaving, or tending to livestock, each task a vital part of survival. Festivals and religious holidays punctuate the year, sometimes with bizarre customs and superstitions. Some believed that carrying a handful of onions in your pocket kept the plague at bay, while others swore that sniffing flowers soaked in vinegar was a safer way to ward off illness. Bathing was a rare luxury. Most people considered it suspicious, almost like they were announcing to everyone that they might be planning something shady. Instead, they washed their hands and faces quickly, often in cold water, and went about their day, their skin rough and their spirits resilient. Life here is a constant balancing act between faith and fear, superstition and reason, comfort and austerity. The political landscape is a tapestry of kingdoms, duchies, and city-states, each vying for control, often with armies marching across the land, leaving trails of destruction and chaos. Wars, invasions, and plagues sweep through the continent like uninvited guests, forcing populations to adapt or perish. The Church's influence extends beyond spiritual matters. Its teachings shape laws, morality, and even daily routines. Superstitions are woven into the fabric of everyday life. A bad harvest might be blamed on a rogue comet, while a sudden illness might be seen as punishment from above. People cling to strange remedies and odd beliefs. Some carried onions, others sniffed vinegar-soaked flowers, all in the hope that these simple charms might ward off the unseen terrors lurking in the shadows. All of this, the grandeur of kings, the chaos of markets, the superstition-laden routines, paints a picture of a world both fascinating and bizarre. It's a world that makes our modern frustrations seem trivial. Your Wi-Fi drops out and you sigh. A wind blows away your umbrella and you curse. But here, a gust of wind might carry whispers of curses, or the wind itself might be seen as a sign from the divine. It's a time where the line between the natural and the supernatural is blurred, where every shadow might hide a secret, and every sound could carry a meaning far beyond your understanding. Now that you know where you've landed, amidst the cobblestones, the market cries, the scent of herbs, and the towering spires, it's time to look a bit closer, to see what daily life truly entails when the world is shaped by faith, superstition, and survival. Because in a way, this world's rhythms and rituals, its strange customs and ancient fears, are the threads that hold it all together. And if you want to understand how people manage to live, breathe, and even laugh in such a world, you'll need to step back for a moment and take in the bigger picture, the grand, often absurd, tapestry of life in the Middle Ages. The air is thick with the scent of dampness, wood smoke, and something else, a faint, familiar tang of herbs and aged fabric. As you stir from your sleep, your first instinct is to stretch, limbs stiff from the night's rest, on a mattress stuffed with straw, or perhaps a patchwork of old blankets. You groan softly, feeling the ache in your muscles, and sit up slowly, careful not to disturb the silence that surrounds you. The morning begins with a simple, almost ritualistic act, washing your face. You reach for a wooden basin, its surface rough under your fingertips, and dip your hands into the cool water, feeling the sharp chill bite at your skin. The sensation is bracing, more startling than the gentle splash of a modern sink, and certainly less refined than the liquid soaps and fragrant gels you're used to. Here, you might splash the water over your face a few times, rubbing your rough hands against your cheeks, trying to clear away the sleep and dirt from yesterday's toil. There's no bottled cleanser or soft towel, just a coarse cloth or a piece of rough linen to pat your skin dry, the fabric scratching lightly against your face. In this world, cleanliness is less about hygiene and more about survival. A quick splash, a sniff, and hope that the smell of sweat and unwashed skin won't offend the neighbors or invite the next plague. You might chuckle softly at the thought your idea of a skincare routine would seem downright luxurious here. No foaming cleansers, no facial masks, no 30-step routines involving serums and exfoliants. Instead, survival is splashing some cold water on your face and praying that the scent doesn't become a public concern. The beliefs of this time are clear. bathing regularly is suspicious, almost like announcing to everyone that you're planning something shady. Instead, people rely on perfumes, herbs, and incense to mask their odors. You might have a jar of vinegar or a bundle of dried herbs, lavender, rosemary, or sage, that you burn gently, hoping to purify the air around you. Some folks swear that rubbing a handful of crushed herbs on their skin can keep away sickness, though it's more likely to be an act of faith than effective medicine. Now let's step inside your home, a modest space that echoes with the sounds and smells of everyday life. The walls are made of dark, rough-hewn timber, the surface uneven and scarred from years of use. Smoke from the fireplace drifts lazily upward, curling around the rafters and mingling with the scent of burnt wood and damp straw. The floor beneath your feet is uneven, creaking with every step, a patchwork of uneven planks or packed mud that's been trodden down so many times it's beginning to crack and splinter. Utensils and utensils of clay and rough-hewn wood are scattered about, a battered bowl here, a rusted spoon there, each bearing the marks of countless meals and repairs. The furniture is sparse and sturdy, a rough wooden table, some benches, perhaps a chair or two, all with worn surfaces that feel coarse under your fingertips. The air carries a faint aroma of smoke and dampness, with a lingering scent of leather from a well-used pair of shoes or a worn strap of your belt. Every surface feels textured and lived in, a tangible reminder of a life spent working with your hands, with little concern for delicate beauty. Clothing here is a far cry from the soft, synthetic fabrics of modern wardrobes. You might be dressed in a heavy tunic, woven from coarse wool or rough linen, designed to withstand the cold and the wear. The fabric itches and scratches, feeling more like a hug from a hedgehog than a cozy sweater. Shoes are stiff, made of thick leather that molds to your feet over time, but offers little comfort on long walks. You might notice a persistent itch or a stiff joint after a long day, your body reacting to the textures and weight of your garments. Your skin, exposed to the elements, feels rough and sometimes itchy, a natural consequence of the coarse fabrics and the lack of modern moisturizers or softeners. Your hair might be unkempt, needing a quick brush or a rinse, if you have access to water and the time, which is a rare commodity for most. Your face and hands, often roughened by work, carry the dirt and grime of the day, a badge of honor in this rugged world. Your first meal of the day reflects the simplicity and austerity of life here. You might nibble on a piece of coarse bread, its crust hard and thick, the inside dry and crumbly. A slice of aged cheese, perhaps mouldy in the best of times, or a bowl of brothy, thin stew made from whatever vegetables or bits of meat you could scavenge. The taste is plain, sometimes sour from the fermentation or the spoilage that's inevitable in a world without refrigeration. Drinking water is often tepid and carries a faint, earthy flavor, sometimes slightly muddy if you're unlucky. A sip of sour ale or diluted wine might warm your insides, but it's nothing compared to the rich, flavored coffees and teas of today. Here, your morning is a straightforward affair, a quick bite, a sip of whatever's available, and then you're ready to face the day's labor, whatever that may be. Hygiene and cleanliness are a matter of superstition, habit, and necessity, rather than comfort. Many believe that taking a full bath is dangerous, an act that could weaken your health or invite evil spirits, so most wash quickly, if at all. Some burn incense or herbs to cleanse the air around them, believing that the smoke carries away bad spirits and sickness. You might have a small pouch of dried herbs, roses, thyme, or sage that you burn or place in a basin of water, hoping to purify both body and spirit. Sometimes a prayer or blessing is whispered before venturing outside, as if words alone could ward off disease or misfortune. You might even wear a small amulet or charm, perhaps a piece of sacred metal or a carved bone, to protect you from illness, an almost magical talisman in a world ruled by unseen forces. All of these routines, these rituals, strange yet familiar, form the fabric of your daily life. You may feel a strange mix of acceptance and humor about it all. Your modern sensibilities might chuckle at the thought of scrubbing your face with cold water and a rag, but here it's simply what survival demands. You might find yourself marveling at how much effort it takes just to start the day. No snooze buttons, no alarm clocks, no quick showers, just the slow, deliberate act of waking and preparing. And yet, amidst the rough textures, smoky smells, and simple routines, there's a quiet rhythm, a resilience that's woven into every moment. Because, after all, life here isn't about luxury or comfort. It's about enduring, adapting, and making do with what you have. Now, with your mind gently attuned to this world, it's time to step outside your door to see what lies beyond these walls. Enough about soap and sour bread. Let's see what happens when you face the day's real work, the social routines, and the unpredictable chaos of medieval life beyond your cozy, if somewhat gritty, sanctuary. You step out of your modest dwelling, the door creaking softly behind you as you face the early morning world, a realm alive with sounds, scents, and movements that are as familiar as they are strange. The air is cool and damp, perhaps touched by a faint fog that clings to the uneven cobblestones and muddied pathways. The ground beneath your feet is a mix of dirt and stone, slick with dew, or, if it's been raining, a sloppy mess of mud that squishes between your toes with every step. The sky above is a dull grey, hinting at a day that might turn warm or remain cold, depending on the season. Around you, the streets are already bustling, merchants shouting their wares, children squealing as they dart between carts, and the rhythmic clatter of hooves and footsteps echoing through the narrow corridors. You carry objects that mark your role, perhaps a leather satchel filled with herbs, a small wooden mask, or a bundle of tools slung over your shoulder, each item a symbol of your purpose in this community. As you move through this lively scene, you feel the weight of your presence, an odd combination of authority and suspicion, your role as a healer, a tradesman, or a craftsman, shaping how others see you. Children stare at you, half curious, half terrified, their wide eyes flicking between your face and the strange tools you carry. Adults nod or scowl, some offering a respectful nod, others eyeing you with a wary glance, unsure whether you're a blessing or a curse. Your function is clear: to serve, to tend, to provide some semblance of order and health amid the chaos. Whether you're visiting the sick, repairing a broken cart, or tending to livestock, your presence is always noticeable, your role woven into the fabric of everyday life. You find yourself moving through different spaces, the noisy marketplace where the scent of fresh bread, dried herbs, and livestock mingles into a chaotic perfume. The quiet churchyard, where muffled prayers drift through the air, or the humble homes with their low doorways and flickering candlelight. Each place hums with activity, merchants hawking their goods, soldiers sharpening their blades, peasants exchanging gossip, and monks mumbling prayers as they tend to their gardens or scribble in their books. You navigate this scene with purpose, your senses heightened by the constant stimulation. The smell of roasted nuts and spiced wine drifts past as you pass by a baker's stall, the clang of metal from a blacksmith's forge punctuating the morning's rhythm. You might pause to examine a sick patient, your fingers feeling the temperature of their skin, your eyes assessing their pallor or breathing. The air carries the faint scent of medicinal herbs, rosemary, mint, or garlic that you use to prepare remedies, and sometimes the bitter aroma of burning incense to ward off evil spirits or sickness. Your work involves a variety of tasks: scraping boils, applying poultices, or burning old clothing soaked in vinegar to prevent the spread of disease. Each activity is a tactile dance, feeling the rough texture of herbs, the weight of a mortar and pestle, the heat of a fire warming your hands. The sounds of your tools, clink, scrape, and crack, blend into the symphony of daily life. Sometimes you carry a cane, not just for support, but for poking at patients from a safe distance, a gesture that's both practical and symbolic. Some doctors believe that smoking dried herbs inside the beak of the mask would keep the disease at bay, like medieval aromatherapy, if you can imagine. You might find yourself in a bustling town square, surrounded by a tapestry of characters. Noblemen in fine garments, their faces lined with concern. Soldiers in armor, their eyes alert and wary. Peasants with soot-streaked faces busy with their chores. Your presence commands a mixture of reverence and suspicion. Children shyly step back when you approach, clutching their mother's skirts. Elders give a nod, recognizing your role, but with a hint of wariness. Nobles, seated on benches or riding in carriages, regard you with a mix of curiosity and disdain. Some see you as a necessary evil, others as a reminder of the fragile line between health and disaster. You exchange quick words with local officials or fellow healers, discussions about remedies, the latest outbreaks, or rumors of cursed stars. Sometimes you're called to perform a ritual, blessing a home, burning herbs to cleanse the air, reciting prayers that sound more like chants than words. All of these routines and interactions are woven into the fabric of your day, a continuous dance of duties, social expectations, and superstitions. It's a world where carrying a cane isn't just a support, it's a tool for maintaining a safe distance, and where some believe that simply sniffing soaked flowers could ward off sickness, almost like medieval aromatherapy. Amid the bustling activity, you feel the pulse of the community, its hopes, fears, and superstitions, each interaction a thread in the complex tapestry of medieval life. Behind every busy market stall, every cautious glance, there's a deeper fear, an unspoken dread of unseen enemies that lurk in the shadows, waiting to strike. To understand why people look at you that way, whether with reverence, suspicion, or a mixture of both, we need to step into their beliefs and superstitions, into a world where health and harm are often intertwined with magic, faith, and a dose of good old-fashioned luck. Because, in this age of uncertainty and mystery, your role is more than just a job. It's a dance with the unseen forces that shape every life, every death, and every moment of hope in this strange and wondrous medieval world. You can sense it in the way they whisper prayers under their breath, their voices a mere murmur that melts into the background noise of church bells tolling, funeral hymns echoing in distant chapels, and the heavy silence that falls over the narrow streets at dusk. The fear is woven into the fabric of daily life, an invisible thread pulling through every moment, every gesture, every hurried step. It's the kind of fear that seeps into your bones, even if you're not quite aware of it, like the faint tremor in the air before a storm, or the distant rumble of thunder that signals a coming calamity. In this world, the presence of danger feels tangible, yet elusive. Diseases like the plague aren't just medical afflictions, they're cosmic punishments, divine retributions for sins long forgotten. You see it in the way people clutch their rosaries tighter, crossing themselves with trembling hands before entering a church packed with flickering candles, incense smoke rising like prayers ascending to the heavens. The everyday routine is punctuated by signs of religiosity, the flicking of beads, the murmured Our Fathers, the painted icons of saints, gazed upon with a mixture of hope and dread. People make the sign of the cross before starting a task, as if that simple gesture could ward off unseen spirits lurking in the shadows. Today you might scroll TikTok for comfort, an endless stream of images and stories that distract and entertain. Yet here they clutch their relics, their amulets, their symbols of divine protection like life jackets in a storm. A small carved figure of Saint Roch, or a worn leather pouch filled with holy herbs, might be their last defense against the miasma, the foul, rotten air believed to carry disease. Some believe that if they carry a dead toad in their pocket, the plague will stay away. Others think that whipping themselves in the streets, bloodied and exhausted, will earn the mercy of a wrathful god. It's the medieval version of essential oils, except with a slightly higher chance of accidental poisoning or a trip to the local healer with a suspiciously potent potion. The superstitions are everywhere, woven into the daily fabric of life like embroidery on a tapestry. You see farmers tying sprigs of garlic or rosemary around their doors, believing these herbs repel spirits and sickness. Amulets carved with strange symbols hang from necks or are pressed into hands, their purpose as mysterious as the stars that guide the night sky. Songs are sung to cast out spirits, melodies believed to have power beyond human understanding, even if most people aren't sure whether it's faith or mere tradition that keeps the evil at bay. And in the marketplaces, vendors hawk potions and charms, their voices blending with the smell of roasted meats and baked bread, each claiming to hold the secret to health, to protection, to salvation. Yet beneath this tapestry of faith and superstition, a collective fear binds the community, an unspoken dread that lurks behind every smile and handshake. The fear of the plague is like a shadow cast over everything, turning neighbors into wary acquaintances, friends into suspects. Whispers of witches and heretics spread faster than the disease itself, accusations flying like arrows, sometimes leading to mobs storming through the town, torch in hand, seeking justice or simply venting their terror. Lynchings are not uncommon, and the line between community and chaos blurs when fear takes hold. Fugitives flee into the woods or hide behind masks, their lives reduced to whispers and rumors. The streets become a stage for collective paranoia. A child's cough might mean death. A stranger's gaze could hide a secret curse. And you, as someone caught in the middle of it all, whether you're a healer tending to the sick or a craftsman trying to go about your day, are a part of this unsettling dance. The townspeople look at you with a mixture of hope and suspicion, their eyes flickering with uncertainty. Some see you as a savior, a divine instrument sent to stave off the darkness. Others see you as part of the problem, perhaps a carrier of the disease or a purveyor of cursed remedies. Children shy away when you approach, clutching their mothers' skirts, while elders nod solemnly, their faces lined with 1,000 unspoken worries. Even in your presence they murmur prayers, crossing themselves or muttering blessings, an act of faith that feels both fragile and fiercely vital. You might notice odd rituals performed in secret corners, people lighting candles in the dark, whispering prayers to saints for protection, or hanging charms inscribed with strange symbols. Some believe that carrying a dried toad or a bone fragment from an animal could ward off evil spirits, an odd relic in a world where science is still a whisper in the dark. The air is thick with incenses and the scent of burnt herbs, an aromatic shield against the invisible threats lurking in the air. Sometimes you hear stories of individuals who believed that blood sacrifices or even the blood of animals could purify the air and keep the disease at bay. It's the medieval version of essential oils, except with a slightly higher chance of accidental poisoning or a trip to the healer's workshop. Fear here is like the smoke from 100 chimneys. You breathe it in whether you want to or not. It's woven into every prayer, every gesture, every hurried retreat behind a door. It binds the community together in a fragile web of shared anxiety, yet at the same time it divides, fueling suspicion, accusations, and sometimes outright panic. People are always on edge, their nerves trembling like a bowstring ready to snap. You see it in the way a village erupts when someone falls ill, the way families barricade their homes, and how townspeople gather in tight knots, whispering about who might be next. In this atmosphere, your role as a healer, a religious figure, or even just an observer is complex. You are both a part of the solution and a symbol of the unknown, trusted by some, mistrusted by others. Your presence might comfort a worried mother or ignite suspicion in a crowd. When you pass through the marketplace or the churchyard, you notice the quickening of breath, the cautious glances, the silent prayers that seem to float in the air around you. Sometimes the community looks at you as if you hold the key either to salvation or to death. The line is thin and everyone walks it with trembling steps. Strange practices and bizarre beliefs flourish in this world of fear. Some believed that carrying a dead toad in your pocket could ward off the plague, an odd talisman that, in its own way, reflects the desperate hope to find protection in the most unlikely of objects. Others thought that whipping themselves in the streets, blood streaming down their backs, would earn God's mercy, an act of penance that, whether effective or not, demonstrated their unwavering faith amid chaos. These rituals, strange, sometimes grotesque, are performed with fervor, as if the very act of suffering might turn the tide against the unseen enemy. It's a culture of desperation and hope, intertwined like the threads of a tapestry that no one dares to unravel completely. As the fear pervades everything, it becomes a force that unites and divides in equal measure. It fuels community gatherings, processions of saints' relics, rituals to ward off spirits, or collective fasting to appease divine wrath. It also sparks suspicion, accusations of witchcraft, heresy, or demonic influence that can turn neighbors into enemies overnight. When enough people believe in curses or curses, communities can fracture and chaos erupts in a matter of moments. You see it in the frantic crowd chasing a supposed witch through the woods, or in a mob demanding justice for someone accused of spreading evil. The fear is like a wildfire, spreading fast and burning everything in its path. And yet, beyond all this chaos and superstition, you, as a part of this world, find yourself caught between the tangible and the intangible, between faith and doubt, hope and despair. People may look to you with reverence, or they may see you as a bearer of bad news, someone who might bring death as easily as healing. Their eyes flicker with a mixture of desperation and distrust, whispering prayers when you approach, clutching charms that may or may not work, and casting cautious glances that linger just a moment too long. You become a symbol of the community's deepest fears and highest hopes, a living reminder of the unseen forces that govern their lives. Some bizarre practices seem almost too strange to believe, carrying a dried toad in a pocket to ward off the plague, or whipping oneself until the skin is raw in hopes of earning divine mercy. These acts, strange as they seem, are woven into the very fabric of their spiritual survival, a testament to how far people will go when faced with the unknown. It's as if they're trying to outrun the shadows with rituals, charms, and prayers, hoping that their faith will be enough to keep the darkness at bay. Fear here is like the smoke from 100 chimneys. You breathe it in whether you want to or not. It's a silent companion in every prayer whispered in candlelit chapels, every hurried crossing of oneself, every glance over the shoulder. It's what unites the community in shared anxiety, yet separates them in suspicion and distrust. It's the invisible thread that pulls tight around their lives, shaping every decision, every hope, every act of devotion. And among it all, you, the healer, the observer, perhaps even the skeptic, stand at the crossroads of faith and fear, watching as the shadows lengthen and the community clings desperately to their beliefs, hoping against hope that salvation lies somewhere in the unseen, the unspoken, and the sacred. But even in a world thick with fear, people still reach for one another, whispered words of comfort, stolen glances of reassurance, and the simple act of holding hands through the darkness. Because after all, beyond the prayers and charms, there are bonds that keep life moving, fragile, human, and surprisingly familiar in the face of all that terrifies. You notice how, despite the weight of fear pressing down on every street corner and the shadows cast by sickness and suspicion, people still lean on each other, cling to each other, as if their bonds could somehow defy the chaos. It's in the way neighbors share a loaf of bread, passing it over a low wall with a knowing glance. In the way families huddle around a fire, voices low and stories treasured like fragile treasures. You see it in the way a grandmother gently pinches her grandson's cheek, whispering old tales of saints and spirits, or how a mother wipes her child's nose with a rag soaked in herbal infusions, both of them connected in a quiet act of care amid the turmoil. Even in these bleak times, the simple act of holding hands, fingers intertwined, palms pressed, becomes an act of defiance against the despair that tries to seep into every corner of life. You recognize that beneath the rough exterior of medieval living, the human need for connection is as vital as the air they breathe. Forget Netflix family drama. Here, your cousin might literally sleep on the floor, just 2 feet from you every single night. The cramped, shared spaces mean that privacy is a foreign concept replaced by a constant, if sometimes begrudging, proximity. The family is both your fortress and your prison. You might wake up to the smell of stale bread and the sound of children giggling behind a low curtain, the same children who will grow up knowing that their family is their first, and sometimes only, line of defense against the tumult outside. The bonds are fierce and unbreakable, yet they come with obligations, serving as both shields and chains. You see a father teaching his son how to tend a fire, a mother whispering prayers over a newborn, or an old aunt reminding everyone to leave offerings at the shrine. These rituals stitch the family tight, but they also tie each person into a web of duties that can feel as heavy as chainmail. In the shadows of these close-knit households, friendship still blooms, though it's often tested by the fear that anyone could be a carrier, a witch, or a traitor in disguise. You witness neighbors helping each other with chores, exchanging a cup of mead, sharing a smoked sausage, or offering a shoulder to lean on during a moment of weakness. A woman might help another mend a torn cloak, whispering advice about herbs to ward off the sickness, their voices a soothing hum amid the chaos. But even as trust knits the community together, suspicion always lurks just beneath the surface. A whispered rumor, a sudden quarrel, or an accusation of witchcraft could turn a friendly face into a foe overnight. You see it happen in the marketplace, an argument over land, a jealous glance, a family torn apart by accusations of sorcery. The social fabric is as delicate as a spider's web, ready to snap under the weight of envy, greed, or fear. And then there are the romances, those flickering sparks of hope in a world overshadowed by death. Perhaps a young maiden steals a glance at a handsome smith across the tavern, their eyes meeting over a flickering candle, or a secret meeting in the woods where lovers exchange promises under the cover of darkness, their whispers mingling with the rustling leaves and distant church bells. Try imagining Tinder swipes? Here, it's more a glance across a smoky room, a quick nod, maybe a dance if the fiddles hold out. Courtships are cautious, often shadowed by the threat of disease or social disapproval, yet they persist, like a fragile flame flickering against the wind. You might see a noble lord send a silk handkerchief embroidered with his crest, or a young woman blush when a suitor offers a simple gift of dried herbs. Love here is both tender and treacherous, an act of daring in a world where one wrong step could lead to accusations, exile, or worse. The hierarchy of society shapes these bonds too. You notice how the noblemen and women clad in fine robes and jewelry regard the common folk with a mixture of condescension and expectation. Lords and ladies host feasts where the rich indulge in sweetmeats and spiced wines, their high tables crowded with courtiers eager for favor. Meanwhile, the peasants work from dawn to dusk, their hands rough and calloused, their lives dictated by the seasons and the whims of their lords. You see the clergymen, saintly figures in robes, walking through the villages, blessing fields and blessing themselves, their voices rising in chants that echo through the stone churches. To some, they are the divine authority, to others, just another layer of the complex web of power and fear. Respect is often earned with a bow or a prayer, but trust is rare, especially when rumors of heresy or heretics threaten to unravel the community's fragile peace. The plague doctor, with his long beak mask and mysterious aura, is a figure of both awe and apprehension, respected by some for his knowledge, feared by others as a harbinger of death, never fully trusted. Community rituals and gatherings are the pulse of this medieval life. You find yourself part of processions, saints' relics carried through the streets, the air thick with the scent of incense and the sound of drums and chants. During festivals, people wear bright cloaks and painted masks, dancing around fires that crackle and spit, their faces lit with joy or fervor. Weddings are grand affairs, with the bride and groom dressed in their finest, the air filled with the smell of fresh bread, roasted meats, and sweet wine. Funerals are somber, yet communal, a shared farewell where everyone wears black, and the air is heavy with the aroma of herbs burned to ward off spirits. You might find yourself caught in the thick of it, your senses assaulted by the aroma of baked bread, the sound of flutes and fiddles, the feel of a hand pressed in yours during a prayer. These moments, these gatherings forge bonds, some genuine, some temporary, some born out of shared fear or hope, but bonds nonetheless. They create a tapestry woven with colors of devotion, anxiety, joy, and grief. But social life isn't without its tensions. Rivalries simmer beneath the surface, disputes over land, jealousies between families, accusations of witchcraft, or petty disputes about honor. You see quarrels erupt in the marketplace with shouting and pointed fingers, sometimes escalating into threats or even violence. Gossip flies faster than the Black Plague itself, fueling suspicion and mistrust. You hear stories of women accused of consorting with spirits, or neighbors whispering behind curtains about who might be a heretic. Public punishments, whipping, branding, or even exile, are community events, part justice, part twisted entertainment. They are the medieval version of reality TV, where everyone's shame is laid bare, and the crowd's cheers or boos determine the fate of the accused. The social fabric is as tangled as a net, with threads of love and loyalty intertwined with strands of suspicion and fear. Your role in this intricate web depends on who you are. As a healer, a clergyman, or even a simple craftsman, your presence carries weight, sometimes comfort, sometimes suspicion. People might look at you with gratitude when you cure a fever, or with distrust when you carry strange herbs. Their eyes flicker with unspoken questions. Are you a saint or a sorcerer, a savior or a bringer of death? When you walk into the town square, you feel the weight of their gaze, some reverent, some wary. You catch whispers, see the quick cross made over their chests or the discreet finger-pointing. You become a symbol, either of hope or of fear, a mirror reflecting their deepest anxieties and desires. You might be invited to participate in communal rituals, blessings, processions, or secret gatherings, each reinforcing or challenging the social order. Some strange beliefs still cling to the edges of this world. In certain villages, people believed that sneezing during a wedding was a sign of good luck, unless, of course, it was a grandmother's sneeze, which could mean the curse of bad fortune. Others thought that carrying a dried frog or a tiny skull as a charm would ward off the sickness, no matter how bizarre it sounds. Public punishments, like the infamous stocks or the burning at the stake, were community events, not just acts of justice, but spectacles that reinforced the collective fears. These rituals, odd and often brutal, served as grim reminders that in this world, belief and fear walk hand in hand, shaping the very fabric of daily life. And of course, in this world of shadows and whispers, the bonds that tie people together are what keep the fragile candle of life flickering. They are the threads that hold the community through love, loyalty, rivalry, and suspicion. You see families sharing their last crust of bread, friends risking everything to help a neighbor, lovers whispering promises beneath the watchful eyes of saints painted high on the church walls. These relationships, tender yet tense, are what make this brutal world bearable, what give it meaning amid the chaos. Amid the fear, they remind you, even in the darkness, human warmth persists. And perhaps that's the greatest hope of all, that no matter how heavy the shadows, the bonds of love and loyalty will endure, weaving a tapestry of resilience in this world, forever caught between despair and devotion. The surface is a simple wooden plank, scarred and worn from years of use, illuminated faintly by the flickering glow of a tallow candle placed near the center. The light dances on rough-hewn trenches of bread, crusty and uneven, spilling crumbs onto the cloth of coarse linen. The air is thick with the faint aroma of a simmering pottage, an earthy, slow-cooked mixture of grains, beans and root vegetables. Its broth a murmur of garlic and herbs. You notice the textures, the roughness of the bread, the glossy sheen of a piece of salted cheese, the cool, smooth surface of a clay bowl filled with warm, yellow eggs freshly gathered from the coop. Utensils are sparse, perhaps a single wooden spoon, a knife with a blade dulled from frequent use, and a small cup of pewter, slightly dented but functional. There's no excessive fuss, no polished silverware here, just practicality and the shared acknowledgement of hunger. The menu is familiar and humble. On ordinary days, your meal might consist of a thick porridge, thick enough to cling to the edges of your trenchers, made from barley or rye, sometimes flavored with a handful of dried herbs or a splash of vinegar. In times of plenty, perhaps a piece of salted fish, its flesh flaky and firm, served alongside a crust of coarse bread. Cheese, firm and slightly crumbly, is sliced into rough wedges, and eggs, either boiled or scrambled, add a touch of richness. You might pick at onions and garlic, their pungent aroma sharp yet comforting, or nibble on a few wild herbs gathered from the hedgerows. Meanwhile, your drink is likely a weak ale, frothed and cloudy, or plain water from the village well, tasting of iron and earth, a reminder of the land's stubborn grip on your daily sustenance. Contrast this with the fare of the noble court: roasted meats, rich sauces spiced with imported pepper or saffron, and fruits dried and candied, their sweetness a distant dream for most. But here, on this modest table, it's all about survival, about nourishing the body enough to face another day's labor or hardship. The food is simple but hearty, feeding not only the hunger, but the senses. Each mouthful a reminder that, amidst scarcity and austerity, life persists and, in its own way, flourishes. Before you eat, small rituals unfold. A quick sign of the cross made with fingers dipped in water or olive oil, an act of blessing or a gesture of hope. Hands are washed in a basin of cold water, the rough cloth of a towel quickly drying them, the act a ritual that connects you to centuries of tradition. The order of the meal follows a quiet hierarchy. The eldest or the highest-ranking guest receives their portion first, a mark of respect and social standing. You might see a servant or a child carefully measuring out a portion of bread or a spoonful of the pottage, ensuring fairness in a world where scarcity often breeds envy. The atmosphere at your table is tinged with a mixture of contentment and restraint. Unlike modern feasts where excess is flaunted in glittering displays, here the hunger is a constant companion, sharp and ever-present, like a faint ache that sharpens the senses. You might observe someone tearing a piece of bread, the rough texture rasping against their teeth, or a neighbor's hand trembling slightly as they pour a splash of weak ale into their cup, mindful of rationing. It's a scene of quiet dignity where each bite is a small act of defiance against the hardships outside these walls, and each sip a moment of fleeting comfort. As you savor the last remnants of your meal, a faint scent of baked bread still lingers, mingling with the smoky aroma of a nearby hearth. The village's life continues beyond this table, market vendors calling out their prices, children's laughter spilling into the streets, the distant chime of church bells marking the hour. When the meal ends, the village breathes again, shifting from the intimacy of shared sustenance to the lively hum of daily routines. Yet, even as your stomach begins to settle, your mind drifts to the evening ahead, perhaps a gathering in the tavern where the wooden tables will fill with singers, dancers, and the clatter of mugs, or maybe a quiet moment of reflection in the candle-lit church, where prayers and psalms soothe the soul after a day's toil. For now you carry the memory of this simple meal, the taste of bread, the warmth of broth, the faint tang of herbs, and look forward to the sounds of music and laughter that will soon fill the night. Because after the last crumb is eaten, after the candle flickers its final breath, the village's pulse continues, its heartbeat echoing in the shared stories, the songs, and the small, valiant acts of joy against the darkness of a world that never quite lets go of its shadows. And in that quiet, humble feast, you find a reminder. Even the simplest life, when shared around a table, is a feast for the senses, a testament to resilience, and a promise that tomorrow's hunger may yet be eased, if only for a little while. Lanterns flicker along the crooked streets, casting long, wavering shadows that dance like phantoms in the corners of your vision. The distant murmur of voices, punctuated by bursts of laughter and the clatter of tankards, beckons you onward. You walk past the open door of a tavern, where the faint glow of a fire flickers against the rough-hewn beams, and the smell of warm beer, stale bread, and wet wood mingles with the air of muffled singing. Inside, the scene is a tapestry of rough camaraderie, benches carved from timber, some bumpy and uneven, lined up beneath low, smoke-stained rafters. The air is thick with dust and the faint, lingering aroma of roasted grains. A group of men tosses dice on a scratched table, their hands rough and calloused, the sound of the bones rattling like promises of luck and despair, falling equally flat. A kaneka of dark ale tilts and clinks, the sound sharp, a simple melody to the background of murmured stories and teasing banter. The dice roll again, tumbling like a promise of fortune, yet more often falling like a boleto, no final do mes, an uncertain debt paid with a shrug. Nearby, a group gathers around a carved wooden board for a game of 9 men's Morris, knights and pawns shifting in slow, deliberate moves. The conversation rises and falls, voices rich with humor, gossip, and the occasional curse when luck turns its back. Someone laughs loudly, the sound cracking like old leather, and a woman with a crooked smile joins in, passing a mug of spiced mead. The melodies of a lute and a Rebecca drift faintly from a corner, their strings plucking at the air, calling you to join a simple dance. You notice the rhythm, feet tapping, boots stomping, each step a heartbeat echoing in the dark. The dance is unhurried, the steps familiar, circle, sway, shuffle. Yet beneath the levity, a thread of solemnity weaves quietly through. Sweat beads on brows, faces flush with the effort and the warmth of shared breath, while the music's hum sustains the moment's fragile joy. A few feet away, a robed clergyman, possibly a flagellant, stands silently, observing, his presence a reminder of the shadows lurking just beyond the glow of candlelight. His eyes linger on the crowd, a mixture of reverence and concern, as if measuring the thin line between faith and fear. The festival's heart beats stronger during these nights when the community gathers to forget, even if briefly, the weight of the unseen terrors, the pestilence, the whispers of divine wrath, the shadows of death that lurk in every alley. Outside, a procession passes, candles flickering like tiny stars carried high, their flames trembling in the evening breeze. The scent of wax, herbs, and incense rises with their steps, moving through the streets like a prayer made flesh. People kneel or bow their heads, caught in reverent silence or gentle singing, chants that echo of hope and penitence. Yet, amid the celebration, a darker tension persists. The flagellants, with their whips and worn faces, march slowly past, their voices rising in sermons that cut through the night like a blade. Their chants remind you that joy and fear are intertwined, that even in the height of festivities, shadows of superstition stretch long. Some watch with a mixture of awe and unease, curious onlookers or perhaps skeptics, while others whisper prayers, clutching relics or crossing themselves, seeking protection from what lurks unseen. You, as a healer of sorts, feel their eyes. Respect mingles with a trace of apprehension, even in the warmth of the tavern's glow. Someone leans over, whispering a question about their ailing child or the strange pains they feel, an urgent reminder that life's fragile thread can snap at any moment. You touch the edge of the nearby sill, perhaps touching a finger to the border of a window frame to ward off ill luck, as local custom dictates. The night hums with paradox, a sense of vitality, of life fighting in the face of death, of laughter spilling over the cracks of fear. The candle's flame flickers, casting shadows that seem to dance with the same stubborn resilience. When the last note of music fades and the crowd's laughter subsides into quiet whispers, the distant bell tolls, its deep, resonant sound echoing through the alleys. It's a reminder that all this, these fleeting moments of joy, these shared rituals, are woven into the ongoing cycle. Birth, promise, loss, and farewell. The city's heartbeat, loud and steady, resonates in the quiet that follows, whispering that even amid shadows, life's dance continues. When you turn away from the tavern, the street remains alive, murmurs of stories, the faint clang of a far-off bell, and the gentle sway of lanterns in the evening breeze. Here, the night reminds you. Everything begins and ends in the same breath, in the same fleeting glow of celebration, before the silence settles once more. You remember the moment when the midwife's hands, rough yet gentle, cradled the tiny, trembling body wrapped in coarse linen. The room was dim, lit only by a flickering candle whose wax was already melting into a small pool, casting shadows that danced softly across the humble walls. A whisper of prayer escaped your lips, an old, quiet plea for life's fragile gift, while the newborn let out its first tiny cry, like a minuscule bell ringing into the world. That sound, so small yet so full of hope, echoes in your mind now, a reminder that each life begins amid uncertainty, a delicate thread woven into the ongoing tapestry of time. In the quiet, you feel the weight of history, of those who came before, passing down stories, blessings and fears alike, imbued in the simple act of drawing breath. Later, at the doorway of the church, a young couple stands with clasped hands, their fingers intertwined with rough silk ribbons, in a moment of promise. The priest's voice, steady and warm, blesses their union, paternal and maternal blessings whispered in Latin, a soft accompaniment to the rustling of bread and the pinch of salt they exchange as symbols of unity. The community gathers, faces lit with quiet joy, each one a witness to this renewal of life's cycle, a small eternity captured in a handful of moments. You've seen it often, the passing of a tool from hand to hand, from father to son, a simple chisel or a worn-out spindle, carrying stories of labor, patience, and tradition. An old grandmother's advice echoes softly in your ears, her voice recalling how to mend or preserve, her words woven into the fabric of daily survival. In the corner of your memory, a weathered bench bears the scars of countless stories, each scratch and dent a mark of time, a testament to lives lived and lessons passed. Yet, life's brightness flickers even in the shadows of disease. You've been there, at a bedside, a simple bed of rough wood, a cloth soaked in herbal oil, or a quick dab of holy oil, murmured prayers filling the air. When the pestilence pressed hard upon the village, the rites became hurried, sometimes incomplete, the silence heavy with unspoken hopes. Your hands, trembling yet careful, bore the weight of care and helplessness, knowing that some things only time and fate can decide. The sound of a distant bell, deep and slow, reminds you of the inevitable, the cycle's closing act. When the last breath slips away, the community gathers quietly, a brief procession to the communal grave, an unadorned pit in the earth, covered softly with dirt, and a few humble stones. Candles, melted into sticky pools of wax, flicker in the cool air, their light fading as the dark settles in. Names spoken softly at the table, prayers whispered over the soil. These are the silent promises kept, the memories that linger like the faint scent of herbs in the breeze. Over the years, the stained glass windows of the church cast fractured rainbows, and painted frescoes, dances of skeletons and monks, remind the living of life's fleeting beauty and inevitable end. The dance of death, a macabre yet humble reminder that all flesh shall return to dust, is painted in vibrant, simple strokes, no moral lessons, only truths. As you settle into the quiet of the night, the candle's glow wanes, shadows melting into the darkness. The city's heartbeat continues, an unspoken rhythm of birth, love, loss. Each moment, a fleeting miracle. You close your eyes, listening to the distant toll of the bell, a gentle reminder that the city breathes, that life's cycle spins on, quietly, endlessly. Now, as the world softens into sleep, you feel the gentle warmth of remembrance, of all that begins and all that must end. And in this gentle closing, you find peace. The same breath that gives life also guides it home. The city continues, and you too, in your quiet space, are part of that eternal dance, born anew each dawn and carried in the silent song of the stars. Now rest. The world slowly darkens, and the gentle glow of life's enduring rhythm beckons you into sleep, where shadows and dreams entwine, waiting for dawn's soft light to awaken you once more.